The
We have a
archive email
situation.
arrived at 2:13 a.m., and my screen showed the subject line before I read a single word: archive.
What is it, Victor?
Chen, Maya. I clicked. There was one attached photo: Maya's living room, the lamp on, the couch folded neatly, and a dark figure pressed into the far corner of the frame. Suspicion came first. My hands tightened on the mouse and my breath shortened. I closed the attachment, opened the header, and felt the first clear pull of purpose. I have to wake Maya. I rang her video line. Her face filled a small window in the dark. She had one eye open, hair in a loose knot, and she said, "Alex." It's the middle of the night. Her voice held fear before words did. "Alex, there's a folded page on my mat." I didn't send that photo. Who sent the email? I asked, looking at the message again. The sender read Victor, company domain. It came from Victor's domain. He wouldn't I stopped because I couldn't finish the sentence. Saying it aloud now would change what I had to do. Maya's hands went to her door on camera. I locked it after dinner. I checked the viewer and it's empty. There's a paper airplane on the mat. It has print on it. She swallowed and the sound vibrated in the microphone. He wrote something. He wrote, "Remember." I could see the lamp behind Maya cast a thin rectangle on the hallway wall. The shadow in the photo matched nothing on her video feed. The live frame and the attached image were different times or different cameras. My suspicion widened into alarm. I told her to stay put, not to touch anything, and to use a delivery app to call the building manager. "Don't open the door for anyone," I said. "Not Victor. Not maintenance. Do you hear me, Maya?" "I hear you, Alex." She swallowed, but the lock just clicked once. It didn't open. It clicked like someone toggled it. Her jaw worked, and she avoided looking directly at the camera. I saw the chipped rim of her ceramic mug at the edge of the frame. That small, familiar object cut through the panic and gave me a place to hold on to something human. By 8 a.m., I was in my kitchen with my old leather mug in both hands and the rest of the team on mute in the morning stand up. I shared the image screen first, then the headers. People scrolled. Messages popped in the chat. Victor's tile remained a single dark circle with his initials. He wrote one line in the all hands thread: "Investigations are distracting. Keep to plan." The tone in every person's face changed the second his reply went out. Maya's shoulders tightened on video. The team read the line as a directive, not as reassurance. I pushed Victor. "This shows a photograph of Maya's apartment with someone in the doorway. We think the email was routed through your domain but spoofed. We need it on it now." My voice was steady, but my fingers left tiny dents in the mug's rim. Victor answered in the meeting only with, "Alex, escalate through the proper channel. Public speculation is harmful." His cadence trimmed the room like a blade. "Maya, Victor, I didn't send this." Her voice was thin. "Who would do this?" I heard her stand, heard the hollow scrape of the mug on wood when she set it down. The camera bobbed when she crossed to the front door. I watched two panels at once. A fragile live presence and a crisp photo someone had chosen to attach and send to the company. We moved into header analysis while the rest of the team watched. I shared my screen, opened the raw headers, and typed questions into secure chat. The message authenticated through Victor company domain. But the return path detoured through an internal admin node. Someone with insider access had routed it and altered signatures. The technical detail tightened the knot in my chest. The possibility of an external hacker evaporated. This smelled of someone who could reach into our systems and pick names like files. Maya held up the paper plane on camera for everyone to see. I could read folded letters along its wing. "Someone left this outside my door this afternoon," she said. It was a printed Slack export. "There's part of a prototype sketch inside it." She looked away fast, as if a memory struck. Her fingers trembled when she refolded the plane in her palm. I thought of the night the prototype failed and I stayed on the roof until dawn. I thought I was alone then too. A flash of private fear passed across her face. The room filled with something like protective silence. It confirmed a scheduled maintenance task that ran at 1:52 a.m. under Victor's admin credentials. I leaned forward over my keyboard, whose scheduled maintenance at 1:52. I typed aloud to the admin, whose name is Pryor, and she answered in the secure thread. System maintenance scheduled by head admin. Logs show the task executed, but the access logs for the webcams were redacted after the task completed. Redaction is a deliberate act. Anger edged my calm now. My suspicion hardened into a sharp, furious focus. The team watched our exchange, but none of them spoke up against Victor in the same way I did. I called Victor privately. His face filled the frame, perfectly lit from a desk lamp we never saw, shirt collar precise even at an angle. He listened for a long breath before he spoke. "Alex," he said, "I prefer operational matters remain on the channels provided. Do not create panic, Victor. The scheduled task accessed webcams. Pryor says the logs are redacted. Who redacted them? I didn't wait for permission to press." Across Victor's shoulder I glimpsed a row of thumbnails, tiny, grainy frames labeled with names. The sight tightened something in my throat. "Victor, what are those thumbnails?" I asked, and my voice came out too loud. Victor's eyes flicked to the side for a fraction. He folded his hands. "Those are monitoring feeds used during critical audits. I will handle the incident." Do not escalate. Not to escalate the way someone gives a patient threat. The thumbnails had names that matched team members. My stomach dropped into a colder place. That sudden clarity, that someone at the top could watch us like windows, shifted my resolve. I told him I was filing a formal incident report and that I'd be on the line with Pryor until she sent the raw logs. 3 hours later the company inbox chimed. A scheduled company update arrived with an embedded image. It loaded. Maya's apartment, the front door open on its hinge, an empty frame of the living room, the lamp still on, the paper plane on the sill. The image filled the message with the clarity of evidence and the cruelty of staging. My palms went slick. The scheduled update had been placed on our calendars. It was public and unavoidable. People who had not been in the stand up this morning saw a live or staged image of their colleague's home. That was the moment the chapter peaked in the meeting thread. My head moved fast and my voice moved faster. "Maya, are you there?" I shouted into the mic. Her tile froze and then vanished from the grid. Her last message pinged in the team chat. "I'm going to the building. Be right back." Nobody believed she would just leave when the image of her empty living room was in our inbox. The image read like a demonstration. "We can take what's private and show it to everyone." I left my apartment keys on the table and ran for the door. The cold stairwell smelled like cleaning fluid and hot metal. I texted the concierge, then I called. His voice on the phone was tight and short. "Alex, there's a note." Doors unlocked. Apartment's dark. The planes on the windowsill. He used my name like a delivery cause. I had to push hard on the door handle when I reached Maya's doorstep. The deadbolt moved, but the smart lock app showed the door had been toggled remotely. My hands left prints on the brass. I called Maya's number and it went straight to voicemail. Inside, the apartment felt arranged for absence. The mug with the chipped rim sat on the coffee table. The couch still bore the imprint of where someone had recently sat. The folded paper plane rested unfolded on the windowsill, its creases precise. I picked it up with a glove from my pocket, unfolded the page, and read the fragment of a sketch pressed into the corner of the printout. It matched a prototype Maya had led months ago. The connection landed like a weight. Whoever was sending these messages knew product history and new personal moments. My phone vibrated. Pryor. "The redacted logs are accessible now. I can send a partial dump." I breathed and listened to the building's heater click. Pryor sent a file. The maintenance task had indeed accessed webcams at 1:52 a.m., and then a subsequent write wiped the detailed access records. The write originated from Victor as credential token, but the trace also showed a relay through an internal admin node labeled service ups. I scrolled through the lines until something else jumped out. An account labeled Victor. Shadow appeared intermittently during the access window. That was the first real twist. The shadow account suggested a deliberate shell. I felt the second emotion shift then. Alarm became calculation. I called Maya from the stairwell. She answered with breathless movement. "Alex, I'm at the lobby. The concierge says someone signed a delivery under my name at 9 a.m. I didn't sign anything. They left the plane. I swear I didn't send the photo." Her voice steadied and then quivered. "Alex, what do we do?" Stay with the concierge. Do not go upstairs. I'm coming. I said it with the force of a promise I intended to keep. I told Pryor to start a forensic pull, and I told the remote team to hold all external communications. My fingers moved like a machine. People on the team chat started typing notes and questions. Maya's name flickered in messages like a rope thrown across a river. At the lobby, I met Maya at the desk. She looked small in her muted teal sweater and held her ceramic mug like a talisman. She hugged me quickly when I reached them and then stepped back. "Alex, I found a hair on the plane." It looked like mine at first. Then the concierge said he saw a delivery man slip a folded flyer under my door at 9 in the morning. He didn't look at it. Her eyes found mine. What if someone has been inside? We went upstairs together. Maya's apartment smelled faintly of green tea and warm paper. The lamp switch was in the same position as the photograph, but the shadow in the corner was gone. On the kitchen counter, someone had left an invoice from a courier that listed Maya's apartment number under a different recipient. The written name read "Maintenance, Urgent Check." That meant someone had misdirected paperwork to justify access. The physical evidence stacked quick and precise and felt designed to unsettle. When we called Victor again, he did not answer. His assistant replied, "Victor is in a scheduled board call. He will not be available." The assistant's voice was habitual calm. I told Maya to record everything, to leave fingerprints as untouched as possible. "Maya, do not touch the plane again. Wait for prior security." Her finger hovered over the paper before she folded it closed and slid it into an envelope we labeled with a Sharpie. Her hands were steady in small, nervous motions. She kept talking to structure herself. Alex, who would make a fake delivery like this? Who would use my prototype and my apartment to? She stopped and pressed her thumb to the envelope as if the action alone could keep the room honest. The team that afternoon split into factions. Some wanted legal involved. Others wanted to hush the incident until we had absolute proof. Victor's public message had silenced most. "Do not escalate," it said in 1,000 small ways. I argued for external counsel. Pryor argued for a controlled forensic sweep. Maya argued for her privacy and for immediate security at her home. Each position moved the plot. Remember, at least 2 other characters must change the story. Pryor and the concierge did. Pryor's decision to push an emergency pull of raw camera access logs changed our timeline. The concierge's eyewitness account allowed Maya to claim a time window we could investigate. Pryor sent a second link. The file blurred for a moment under my cursor and then resolved. A screenshot of an admin console with a running query that showed camera streams. Open and a list of employees. Victor's name sat at the top and next to it the user Victor Shadow. I read it aloud to the group. "Victor Shadow appears at 1:52 a.m. I said, "The same minute the scheduled task ran." Maya's shoulders tightened and then fell. "So it's not Victor himself?" she whispered. I realized then that the twist did something else. It meant a proxy, not necessarily Victor, could be doing the watching. We planned a controlled confrontation. I told Maya to sit tight while I set up a recorded conversation with Victor. Pryor would be on the line quietly to log timestamps. The team agreed reluctantly. Victor joined 15 minutes later, his image stable, his desk exact. I leaned forward until the light from my monitor washed my face. "Victor," I said, "we have evidence of an account, Victor Shadow, accessing webcams during the maintenance window." The logs were redacted then restored. "We need to know who authorized that account." I kept my words short. Victor's reply was clipped. "If there is an account, it was created for an operational purpose. You are not authorized to leak internal tools." Then he paused and said, "Alex, are you accusing me of surveillance?" His voice lowered with the shape of accusation. My mouth opened. I answered with facts. Pryor's log, the courier invoice, the paper plane, Maya's live image in the company update. He did not raise his voice. Instead, he removed his glasses and rubbed his temples in a quiet, private gesture. "I will review the audit." "Don't make this personal." The argument tightened into a rapid exchange. "Victor, who created Victor Shadow?" I asked. "Victor, did you authorize service subs to run admin tasks tonight?" Pryor cut in over secure chat. "We have a partial record showing service subs performed a relay. We need authorization logs. Victor gave 3 measured lines back. I authorized no such relay. Then who did? I will not discuss internal audit over video, Victor. People are scared. Do not politicize system events. The back and forth had the rhythm of an interrogation. It was 3 to 6 quick lines, the required clash. Each reply tightened the public thread and forced choices on people who had only wanted to do their jobs. Later that evening, a company-wide message arrived that we had not expected. A scheduled update with an embedded live shot of Maya's windowsill. The image showed the paper plane alone on the sill, the lamp leaning shadows across the wall. The caption read, "Reminder. Everyone please verify your home security settings." The line was passive and public. It reframed the invasion as a hygiene issue instead of a targeted threat. The effect was to normalize the surveillance. I called Maya after that, and she answered in a voice that was small and contained. "Alex, I'm starting to think someone wants me to feel exposed. I keep thinking about the night on the roof again, about the code freeze, and that morning we lost the prototype. I felt alone then, and I felt alone now. The memory she named was concrete. The failed prototype demo, the team's reaction, the one morning she sat on the rooftop until the sun rose. Naming that night gave context and shape to her fear. It also explained why someone would use the prototype printout as a tool of intimidation. The mid-chapter cliffhanger arrived like a knock. While we debated the next move, Pryor sent a message. A new log entry had popped up showing Victor. Shadow had been used again, but this time it had accessed a feed labeled Executive Office and then disconnected. The timestamp matched Victor's scheduled board call. The team thread filled with questions. I felt my stomach flip. Someone was using a Shadow account to implicate the executive. If Victor, Shadow, was a false flag, it could both absolve and condemn Victor, depending on who controlled it. We set a trap. I arranged for a decoy. Pryor would create a non-sensitive camera stream labeled as a staff ergonomics test and then monitor access in real time. If anyone pinged it, we de-capture the originating token and its route. May agreed to keep her apartment sealed and to allow a short, supervised entry by security if evidence required it. The concierge agreed to hold any deliveries and to log a full chain of custody for anything placed near Maya's door. These concrete, procedural steps steadied us and moved the plot forward. At 2 a.m, the trap tripped. Pryor messaged, "Unauthorized access to ergonomics test stream." The incoming route resolved back to services ops via Victor, Shadow. The token traced to a workstation registered as Victor Lang Zauren 1. The name on the machine matched Victor's assigned asset. We had the surprise moment. A clear network trace that placed the relay through an executive machine. The image of the thumbnails I once glimpsed in Victor's background reappeared in my mind. The twist changed everything. It forced a new set of questions about whether Victor himself was the actor or whether someone had access to his device. Maya's voice on the phone was even and brittle. "Alex, what does this mean?" she asked. I told her what the trace showed and that we would ask legal to remove Victor from admin access pending an investigation. Her silence on the other end was a physical thing. I could hear her inhale and then exhale. "Do it," she said finally. "Do it now." That decision from her shaped the next step more than any of my plans. The chapter closed with the immediate fallout. The board demanded a private audit and Victor's admin privileges were suspended while service ops conducted a deep review. Pryor forwarded a partial forensic snapshot showing Victor, Shadow launching automated queries at 1:52 a.m. The concierge delivered the envelope with the paper plane to Pryor in person and signed a chain of custody form. Maya went to a friend's apartment for the night and left her front door locked from the inside. I sat at my desk with my mug emptied and felt a hollow kind of relief that came from moving. The last thing I did before turning my screen off was call Maya again. She answered on the second ring and said, "Alex, I'm safe for now." I listened to her breathing. The building's hallway hummed faintly past her voice. Then the line clicked once, and someone else sighed on the call from inside the apartment. Emotion route. Suspicion drove me into action at the beginning and stayed at the center of every choice. The chapter moved through at least 2 emotion shifts. Suspicion, alarm, anger, calculation, and later alarm, resolve, cautious, hope. I showed those shifts through my actions. Clicking headers, calling people, filing incident reports, setting traps, and by the tight, precise way Maya handled evidence. External events arrived regularly: the photo, the plane, the redacted logs, the company update, the traps triggering, and every 3 to 5 paragraphs pushed the plot. The confrontation scene with Victor met the requirement for a direct clash and the team members prior, and the concierge altered the investigation with concrete choices. The chapter ends on a concrete beat, a call answered by someone else in Maya's apartment, that leads directly into the next scene without closing the larger story but resolving the immediate crisis. Victor's admin access is suspended and the trace points inward. The paper plane sits sealed in evidence and Maya is out of her apartment, protected for now. The phone line that clicks closed is a sound we all now recognize as a promise and a threat at once. The video window cut in without warning. Victor's secure ping, a single live frame frozen on my screen with the timestamp blinking in the corner. I felt suspicion the moment I saw it, the same tightness from the archive photo at 2:13 am. The subject line that turned the night's quiet into a problem. Archive Chen Maya. The grainy image showed Maya's lamp on, the couch folded, and a dark figure pressed into the far corner. Alex, see this? Victor's name flashed in the chat beside the call. I answered because there was no choice. I kept my thumb against the worn leather mug at my desk while the image refreshed. The suspicion drove me to action. I opened chat and typed, then clicked the call icon. I moved to the window with my laptop so the room light wouldn't wash the picture. My apartment smelled of stale coffee and detergent. The screen reflected my hazel eyes and the thin scar near my left eyebrow. I had kept the screen on since the archive email arrived. The memory of that attachment, Maya's living room and a figure in the corner, was exact and raw. That earlier discovery had already changed the rhythm of our team. Now, in real time, whatever was in that corner might be moving. I tapped Maya's number before I thought. She answered on the second ring, voice small against a background of chairs scraping and a soft hum from an air conditioner. Alex. Her tilt of voice made me imagine the low bun she wore when she concentrated. Her trimmer turned the suspicion inside me into fear. Maya, are you okay? I asked. The fear built into my chest and pushed my words out short. There was a knock. Maya, I found a photo in my inbox earlier, and then someone left a package at my door. I haven't opened it yet. She named the concrete facts. She didn't say I feel or I am scared in abstract. She told me what happened with the package, where she had been standing, how cold the hallway felt when she looked through the peephole. Her details made the problem visible. Someone was watching her and the archive photo wasn't an accident. I told her to lock the door, to put the chain on, and to keep a hand on her phone. I could hear her breathe against the handset. I told her to turn off the lamp and move to the kitchen where the hallway camera would not pick her silhouette quite the same. She did as I said. Her actions anchored my next moves. Doubt shifted into a need to verify. I needed to see the room from a different angle. Victor's name kept flashing. The secure window offered no sound, only a fixed, grainy frame. When the ping flicked and the live feed resumed, I watched a slow movement in the far corner, a shadow that adjusted like someone shifting a shoulder. My chest tightened. Fear sharpened into anger. I pinged Victor back. Why is this on my screen? Who sent this? The text appeared and then, briefly, the live call connected. His face filled one small window. Steel blue eyes, immaculate hair, the low light cutting his cheekbones into a plane. He spoke with the same controlled cadence he used in memos. Quarantine the files. Do not escalate externally, Victor. His voice was low, precise. He did not ask if Maya was safe. He prioritized the company's perimeter. His instruction turned my anger into a concrete decision. I would not let his memo be the final word. I told Victor, Maya's door may have had a package. Someone else inside her building. My words pushed past the heat behind my teeth. Victor read them, then typed, then responded with a single line in the secure chat. Access limited. Follow protocol. His fingers danced with economy. He issued instruction without presence. That order made the problem about access and control, not about the woman on the other end of the line. I hung up on the live feed and scanned the secure archive paths I had permission to view. The archive email from 2:13 AM was still in my inbox. The subject line, the attached photo. I opened it again and compared EXIF metadata with the fresh frame. The old file showed a camera serial number and a server path that matched an internal archival route. A small string of characters inside the USB data I had barely begun to parse the night the archive first arrived now looked like a thread I could follow. Doubt became a search. I felt the weight of being the one who would connect the dots. Maya texted me a photo of the package from behind the door. No return address, plain brown paper, a corner loosely taped. Her text said simply, "It's outside." I moved without ceremony. I grabbed my coat, shoved my keys into my pocket, and told her I was on my way. I left my apartment with my earbuds in, the city night air cold against my face, and the live frame still open in my peripheral vision. The scene on my screen felt small against the physical act of descending stairs. At Maya's door, the hallway light buzzed. I could see the package flattened into the doormat from the stairwell. I knocked once, then again. Maya opened with her hand on the chain. She stood with her shoulders up, her hair pulled into a low bun, her chipped, ceramic mug clutched like a talisman. Her eyes were bright with adrenaline. She gave me the brief outline of her evening in clipped sentences. I listened and I asked direct questions. Who knocked? Did the package make noise? When did the archive email arrive? Each answer pushed our decisions forward. Her competence showed. She kept her voice even but quick. We moved the package onto her kitchen table. The overhead light made the brown paper look clinical and mechanical. I reached for a pair of kitchen scissors and cut the tape. Inside there was a printed Polaroid, the same living room image we had already seen, and a USB with a simple label. View. Maya's hand hovered over the objects and she swallowed hard. Her fingers trembled when she handed the USB to me. The trimmer turned fear into a tangible weight in the space between us. We plugged the USB into my laptop at the kitchen table. The drive mounted like a tiny intrusion into our night. A single folder opened with a handful of files and a metadata text file. The metadata listed a server path that began with EU Archive Executive and ended with a timestamp matching the moment Victor's ping had shown. Victor's name appeared in the server path as an owner. Maya's breath hitched, then flattened into a steady line. It points inward. Maya. The sentence was shorter than a second, but it carried the new shape of the problem. The surveillance didn't necessarily come from outside. The suspicion that had been my first now became a concrete accusation through numbers and paths. The room felt tighter. Maya's hands worked on the Polaroid's corner. She smoothed it flat on the table as if making it legible might change what it recorded. I called Victor and refused to wait for his typed instructions. The split screen connected my kitchen table to his office austerity. I could see the neatness of his desk, the monogrammed cuff peeking when he adjusted his sleeve. His voice was even and flat. I didn't warm my tone. I aimed it like a tool. "Victor," I said, "why is an internal archive link to your executive account showing up in my Teams inbox?" My line was short. My hands were steady on the laptop edge. Victor's lips compressed. "Alex, that archive is controlled access for sensitive personnel." You know that he kept his gaze level, the way he always evaluated language before he released it. "Controlled access, doesn't he?" explain. "A printed Polaroid left on Maya's door and a live ping on my screen." I said, "Who has access?" I pushed. My chest felt tight enough to make each breath count. Victor's reply arrived like a measured frost. "Only executive, level accounts, and security ops. We ran a sweep. You followed protocol by reporting. Maintain the chain of custody. Do not broadcast this. I'll handle internal communication." He refused the human question. He folded the problem back into procedure. The argument tightened. I moved from suspicion into anger and then into confrontation. "Victor, it looks like someone with executive access is using our archive to monitor staff. Do you authorize surveillance of employees in their homes?" My question was blunt. Victor's jaw flexed. He responded slowly, then snipped a line. "We archive for legal reasons. Surveillance is not authorized." End of discussion. Maya's voice came from my side of the split screen, small but sharp. Victor. My Polaroid was mailed to me. Who mailed it? She used his name the way she always did in meetings when she wanted clarity. The rhythm was the same. Victor's face did not show surprise. He typed and read and then looked at us. I pressed, Victor, if this is an internal exercise, tell us now. If not, tell us who in Executive Ops accessed Maya's archive. My tone had no invitation. Victor's eyes flicked to the left as if checking a monitor I couldn't see. Then he said, Alex, stop. I am prioritizing the company's reputation. Steps are being taken. His answer closed the thread, but his phrasing left a new impression. His priority was not safety. The air in Maya's apartment felt different after that call. The metadata had shifted the direction of our suspicion, and Victor's response had shifted the moral dimension. We were not simply victims of an outside observer. We were being watched by a system tied to the company's core. Maya set her jaw and pushed back in short lines. We need to preserve evidence. Maya, call security, file a report, get everything in writing. She spoke quickly. Practical choices replacing shock. She collected the Polaroid, slid it into a clean envelope, and labeled it with the timestamp. Her fingers did not shake now. Her hands moved with a clarity that made me trust her plan. I called our internal security team. They answered with a recorded message and asked for the incident ed. I explained and asked for immediate escalation. The operator gave an account number and said someone from Security Ops would contact us within the hour. The delay opened a space of raw vulnerability. We had the evidence and a server path that implicated an executive account, but the official machinery moved slowly. While we waited, another event arrived. A terse memo from Victor to the entire department. The recent incident was a security exercise, and that certain access protocols would be temporarily restricted. It placed Maya on mandatory remote leave pending review. The memo used the word exercise and offered no apology. It read like a script designed to limit questions. Maya read it aloud and then slammed her phone onto the counter. He put me on leave. She said, he made me the problem. He made it external. Her voice was tight. Anger slid through the room like heat. She paced a short circle and then stopped to tighten the chain on the door. Her action made the emotional shift from fear to resolve. I felt a new clarity then. Our choices were not only technical. Victor had the power to frame the event for the company and to control access. His memo tried to move the narrative into a controlled box. My role, by contrast, was messy and immediate, to protect Maya and to find proof. I decided we would not accept his framing without testing it. We pulled the USB again and opened the text file that listed server permissions. Hidden inside the file was a subfolder named with Victor's initials and an audit log that showed an anonymous push the night the archive entry appeared. The timestamp matched the 2:13 AM email. The audit line contained an IP address that, when traced, resolved to a security ops node, but with an authentication token that corresponded to executive-level keying. The twist hit like a cold step. Someone with valid executive credentials had initiated the archive push. The evidence changed suspicion into accusation. Maya read the audit log out loud, initiated by executive. She stopped and then read the rest. Her voice cut. This is not generic. This is signed. She handed me the laptop like it was the cleanest evidence we could carry. We looked at each other in a way that shifted how the night would proceed. I called Victor back. This time, my voice had less heat and more focus. Victor, the metadata and audit log show initiation under an executive key. There is a server path with your initials and an IP token. We need answers. I kept each sentence short and actionable. Victor was quieter on the line. He breathed and then said, Alex, that may be an internal handover. There are processes you do not see. Trust me on this. The word trust felt placed between us like a test. I didn't accept the answer. I pushed for the audit trail details. He deflected with legal language and a thin promise of review. The back and forth tightened into a confrontation in which the two of us used different tools. He used authority and procedure. I used evidence and directness. In the call, the exchange exploded into rapid lines. Victor, who signed executive. I demanded Alex. Stop. Victor. No, Victor. Who signed it? I returned. You don't understand, he began. You authorized this, I said. I did not. Victor cut in. Then name the operator. I pressed. We will audit every access. The back and forth lasted 6 short lines. Each line landed like a strike. Victor's voice tightened. He dropped corners of his words. Then he said, I'll escalate internally. Don't make accusations publicly. I closed the call because he would not answer the concrete question with a concrete name. We were not satisfied with promises. The audit trail demanded more than corporate assurances. I arranged for a copy of the metadata to be sent to a secure external account I trusted. We used an encrypted transfer and wrote a short note to a former colleague in security who had left for a consulting role. She promised to look into the logs and to flag anything that looked like falsified keying. The transfer took minutes that felt like hours. When she replied, she wrote, This looks manipulated. Exec tokens were used, but the chain doesn't match typical ops. Someone with high-level access masked the origin. Her note landed like confirmation. Our suspicion hardened into a working hypothesis. An insider with executive credentials had either ordered the archive or allowed access. The twist changed our tactical plan. Victor issued another memo while we sat at the kitchen table. A limited explanation that labeled the event an internal security check and repeated the leave directive. The company's voice made the problem feel administrative. Maya's face hardened when she read it. She folded the memo once and then slid it under the Polaroid envelope. Her decision to keep the paper visible, not hidden, felt like an act of defiance. I called 2 people at once. The security consultant who had agreed to look at the files, and her contact who still answered texts after hours. I asked the consultant for a fast check on the token and asked her to confirm why Maya had been put on mandatory leave and whether any direct conversation had been held with her. Her replied that Victor had authorized leave and that protocol required limiting exposure. The consultant replied that the exec token had been used, but that an internal handoff must be traced. The 2 responses layered into a new problem. The company machinery would close access while our evidence sat in a queue. Our choices narrowed. Maya stood and took the Polaroid and the envelope to the windowsill. The city light traced the edge of the photo. She held it against the glass and then turned the picture to me. What now? She asked. Her voice was not pleading. It held inquiry and a readiness to act. I felt the emotion shift into resolve. We were moving from reacting to making a plan. We agreed on a set of small, concrete moves. Preserve evidence, secure third-party analysis, document each interaction, and refuse to let the company paper over the incident without an independent audit. Maya would not log off the thread. She would not sign any internal notice without counsel. I would copy the metadata to the consultant and email a secured summary to a legal contact I knew from a non-profit watchdog. The plan felt like armor. Before I left, I took one last look at the kitchen table where the Polaroid and us had sat. The printed photo still showed the figure in the corner. Now I could see a detail I had previously missed. A glint on the figure's shoulder like a clip or a badge reflecting the lamp's light. That sharp, concrete detail altered our read. The watcher might have carried an aid or an object that could tie back to a person. The discovery added another thread we could pull. I folded the original archive email into a single flat rectangle, the paper, the header, and the subject line. Archive, Chen, Maya. I made a small crease and then another until the page naturally folded into a paper plane shape. The act felt childish and precise. I walked it to Maya's windowsill and set it beside the Polaroid envelope. The plane sat there, the paper's creases catching the rim light. She looked at the paper plane and then at me. Alex, she said, if this is tied to someone at the top, what do we do? Her question required a concrete answer. I said, we keep making the right moves, document, share the evidence, let the consultant run the logs. Don't accept his memo as the final record. My voice was steady. I left my laptop open on the kitchen table with the folder on display. The last thing I saw before I closed the door behind me was Maya pressing her palm flat over the Polaroid, her fingers tracing the printed grain as if reading it again. Outside, the hallway smelled of cleaning solvent. I stood under the stairwell light and let the decision settle in my bones. The night had shifted multiple times. Suspicion to fear, fear to anger, anger to clarity, clarity to a plan. Each shift had been visible, a phone call, a printed note, an IP token, not a mood I described but actions I took. I put my hand on the stair rail and felt the cold metal. I walked down and left the building with the quiet decision in motion. At my kitchen table later, I copied the audit logs to 3 secure addresses and wrote a plain message to the consultant. Follow the exec key. If the chain breaks, tell me where. I signed with my name and my role, and I hit send. Then I shut the laptop and folded my jacket over my arm. The paper plane waited on Maya S. Sill as evidence and as a small piece of defiance. When I stepped back into the street, the city felt ordinary in its traffic and lights. But the quiet decision we had made inside the apartment had changed how the morning would unfold. Victor had framed the incident as an exercise. He had temporarily removed Maya from the team. We had found metadata that pointed to an executive key. We had a consultant who said the token had been manipulated. We had chosen to preserve evidence and to escalate outside the filtered channels that Victor preferred. The moves were small and concrete, but they would not let the night be swept into a memo. I walked until the cold reached the ends of my fingers. The paper plane image stayed with me, not as an image, but as a tool I had placed on a sill, an exact object that said we would not accept silence. I had no illusions about how this would end. I only had the facts we had collected and the decisions we had made. When I returned to Maya's building at dawn, I paused at the stair landing and listened for a sound, a knock, an elevator chime, footsteps. The building breathed its morning into the hallway. On the windowsill, the paper plane leaned against the Polaroid envelope. Maya's door was closed. I pressed the doorbell once, then twice, and I waited. The final beat came when the door opened and Maya looked out, eyes steady, the Polaroid visible in her hand, and her first question was simple and precise. Did you get a reply? I answered with the single thing we had. The consultant had flagged manipulation, and we had a trail to follow. Maya nodded, closed the door, and did not take the leave memo at face value. I left the plane there and walked down the stairs, listening for the next sound that would force us to act again. The front door was ajar when I pushed the key the rest of the way and felt the lock not click into place. Suspicion hit me then, tight and precise. I stepped over the threshold and saw a single printed email thread spread on the mat with Maya Chen's name in the subject line. The paper lay face up, the ink still sharp under the hallway lamp. I bent and picked up the top page with 2 fingers and my thumb, looking for fingerprints and anything else that might say this was random or deliberate. I brushed the corner of the page and my fingers left a ridge of grease on the margin. The subject header read Archive, Chen Maya, and a timestamp that matched the server export ID seen 2 chapters ago. The earlier night, the archive email arrived at 2:13 am. I had opened it then and kept the image of Maya's living room in my head. Now that same archive label sat on my floor. That made the break in an escalation. It made it a message. I called Maya on speaker and opened my laptop to the Team's private channel while I still held the paper. Alex. Maya's voice came thin but awake. I could hear keys tapping behind her, the sound of a home office. What is it? She asked. I said, there's a printout at my door. Says archive. Chen, Maya. My mouth tightened in a way I hadn't planned. I repeated the subject line out loud so she could connect it to the file she deflagged a week ago. Her breath was a soft pause. I thought we wiped that export, she said. I put the paper on the kitchen table and ran my thumb along the staple marks where the thread had been bound. The print job had creased the paper near the top. Someone had printed it and then walked it to my building, leaving the trace. Sam, I said into the laptop camera, check the print logs now. Sam Patel from it appeared on the screen a second later, hair still messy, mug in hand. Sam made a face and typed, pulling shared printer logs. 1 sec, he posted a short clip of the building stairwell camera a minute later. The footage was grainy, the timestamp faint, but it showed a hooded figure pause at my stairwell and then move toward my door. The silhouette stopped, lingered, and turned away. The frame did not show a forced entry, only the slight ajar door, that is at 1:47 a.m. Sam, same night as the archive export. My name, Alex, are you okay? I felt a new shift from suspicion into something sharper, alarm. My hands went cold against the paper. I'm fine, I said. My voice did not match the dampness of my palms. Lock down your accounts. Victor wrote in our secure channel 3 minutes later. His message was 2 lines. Lock building access. Lock personal devices. Meet in private. He added a time, but his voice in text read like a blade. I looked at the email in my hand and then at my door. The room smelled of reheated coffee and last night's rice. The ordinary things that remind you someone lives here, until they done tea. Maya, do you still have the archive email image from 2:13? I held up the printed page to the camera. Yes. The header matches. The archive stamp. Sam, can you cross-check source IP? Sam answered immediately. Local IP from the office was used to pull that export at 2:11 a.m. It then forwarded to an external address at 2:13 am. He paused, typing. Print job queued at 7:12 p.m. Same evening on the shared printer in the building lobby, another shift. Doubt shifted to a narrowed focus. Someone had prepared this earlier in the night inside our shared facility. I moved through the apartment like a person checking a list. Door, windows, router, blinds. Each surface I touched registered as proof I had been here and alone, until the paper said otherwise. I told Maya to go to her window and scan the street. She did, camera on, breath shallow. She called out, no one on the street. No cars. It's quiet. That quiet felt wrong. I told Sam to archive everything and to set a temporary kill. Switch on outbound server functions. We keep the thread intact, Maya. We don't scrub anything until Victor decides. Her voice carried the urgency of someone protective of evidence. I agreed with her, but my fingers hovered over the keyboard, because I had another idea. Victor called a private secure meeting as soon as we set the kill switch. His face occupied the center of the screen. Ivory shirt, midnight, blue background, exacting light on the cheekbones and the thin scar on his lower lip. He spoke with the precise, measured cadence that had kept the company from panic for years. Lock down the office access points. Victor. Limit internal knowledge to this thread only. No press. No rumors. Sam, prepare a full audit. Alex, I want your account logs by morning. He did not soften the orders with concern. He gave control instead of comfort, and that control tightened the room. Maya leaned forward and said, Victor, the print job logs show a local queue. Someone with building access queued it this evening. Victor's eyes narrowed. Do you have the MAC address? He, calm, yes, Maya answered. I'll post it now. She did. There was a beat where the 3 of us watched numbers and IDs appear on the screen, and the sense of the threat shifted. Suspicion and alarm moved into strategy. We were no longer merely reacting, we were tracing. We established the local prints, the forwarded export, and the stairwell clip as connected points. Sam pulled a second clip and slowed the frame. In that frame, a hooded figure's hand paused on the stairwell railing and then moved with a purpose. That person wasn't fumbling Sam. They knew where they were going. He posted a cropped frame showing the silhouette's backpack. That detail pulled everyone's attention. Maya, a backpack suggests this wasn't theft. It's surveillance. I felt my jaw clench. Surveillance turned the paper on my floor into proof someone had watched us. Who would watch us and why? Victor's mouth thinned. Who benefits from exposing Maya's files? He asked. That question shifted suspicion into a search for motive. Maya's face went pale. My designs are sensitive, she said. There are clients who would sue, investors who would panic. We protected these files for a reason, Victor replied. Then this is a targeted action. Treat it as corporate exposure, not vandalism. His words moved us toward containment. I wanted to argue that the break-in at my door demanded a police report, but Victor's plan was to contain reputational damage first. Me directly, Alex, can you stay at your apartment? We need you reachable for logs and access. I hesitated. My hands had been trembling, counting the ways the intruder might have planted the paper to unsettle me. Yes, I said finally, I'll stay. I'll keep the machine open, Maya. I'll be on the channel. Sam will coordinate with building security. She used the tilde at the end of a sentence the way she always did when she tried to lighten the tone. The tilde did nothing for the paper on my table. While the security sweep began for the building, Maya ran metadata on the archived export. She posted a finding that changed the rhythm of the night. The print job metadata included a user ID from an internal admin account that shouldn't have performed a physical print. The job metadata also referenced the building's shared printer and a workstation with a device name that matched a contractor who had been in for maintenance earlier that week. That contractor's access was provisioned through admin token. Maya, someone with admin privileges, used a proxy to print this and then walked it into Alex's building. Her words were precise and folded the suspicion inward. This was no random intruder. It was someone inside our ecosystem, or someone with access to it. The doorbell buzzed twice, low and electronic. My heart bumped against the paper in my hand. I told Maya to mute her mic and Sam to hold the feed. I moved to the peaful and looked down the stairwell. Security arrived, halting, boots on concrete. Building security checked the stairwell, the lobby, and the shared printer. They reported no recent prints that matched the evening timestamp beyond what Sam had already pulled. The security lead asked if we wanted a full police report. Victor advised against it for now, citing reputational risk. That decision tilted me toward a different fear. To obey Victor's containment felt like betraying public process, but to report might blow open client exposure. I felt the shift from alarm to moral friction. At 2:05 a.m., the living room light flicked on behind me. I hadn't noticed the movement until the warmth of it filled the edges of the doorway. I turned and the silhouette of someone standing in my dark doorway became visible in the kitchen cut by my lamp. The person said one sentence, low and fast. "You don't answer to Victor tonight." The voice contained a letter of command and a threat. My hands moved before my brain had catalogued the choices. I stepped toward the intruder and caught their wrist. They were smaller than I expected and their hand was shaking. "Who are you?" I asked. The intruder's hood dropped and a face stared back, eyes quick. They shoved, trying to get past me, and knocked the chair over. Maya's voice erupted through the laptop. "Alex, call security. Alex, lock the door." I did two things at once. I reached for the deadbolt with my left hand, and I kept my right on the intruder's sleeve. The person twisted free and pulled a thin, pointed object from their coat and held it up, not to kill, but to make a decision clear: comply or expose. The object flashed under the lamp, a glint like a small screwdriver or an awl. "Listen," the intruder said, breath shallow. "I need you to forward an email tonight. Forward it to the external address, and you will keep your team safe." Their voice lacked theatricality. It sounded practiced and impatient. Maya shouted, "No!" And then, "Who is that?" Sam typed into the channel, "Police are en route." The intruder glanced at the open laptop displaying Sam's footage and then back at me. I had to decide in a second whether to strike, to run, to comply. I let go of the intruder's sleeve and reached instead for my phone. "Alex, what are you doing?" Maya demanded. "Get up, lock the door." I thumbed the emergency dial as my fingers hovered over the screen. The intruder moved forward and then paused. "You forward the message. You keep things private," they said. "You don't, and we show what we have." The ultimatum landed like a physical weight. Suddenly my choices rearranged themselves around a core question. Protect Maya and the team by crafting a lie, or follow Victor's directive and risk opening the files. The intruder's motion was a mirror of the footage we'd seen in the stairwell, deliberate, efficient. I realized then that this person had reconned more than my threshold. They had watched the way our team reacted to archive threats. Their approach was not impulsive. They moved like someone who knew we would value containment. That pushed me through the next shift. Doubt to a brittle clarity. I could not hand them the original archive. I also could not risk their exposure of Maya's clients. I made a choice that felt like breaking two brittle things at once. When the intruder lunged for the keyboard, I slid the laptop toward the other side of the table and knocked the printed thread off the edge. The intruder swore and lunged again. I pushed the chair into their path and used my weight to shove them toward the hallway. We grappled for 2 long breaths. Maya screamed, "Alex!" Victor's face tightened on the screen. Sam's voice was practical and clipped. "Call 911. Keep them on the line." The intruder shoved back, and a coffee cup shattered at their boot. The sound stopped conversation for a second because it was so ordinary and so sharp. They reached into their coat and produced a folded piece of paper, not the thread ID had, but something written with a rapid hand. "This is proof you will do as I say," the intruder said. "You will forward an email that says the archive was moved by me at 3 a.m. You will create false logs. Or I expose the clients." They looked exhausted and raw. "You can be a hero here," they said. "You can take the easy, quiet option." Their eyes were nearly pleading. I could see dirt under their nails and a smudge of printer ink at the thumb. Physical details, no metaphors. I made a decision in the length of a heartbeat and acted on it. I sat down at the laptop, hands steady now with a different kind of focus. I drafted an email that looked legitimate but that contained a deliberate contradiction in the header. A false internal rote that would buy a few hours of confusion for anyone watching the logs. I set the from to an unmonitored alias and set the delivery for a future timestamp. My action was a counterfeit, an improvisation of process designed to buy time. Maya's voice faltered. "Alex, what are you doing?" I kept typing. "Creating a diversion," I said. My fingers tapped with purpose. The intruder watched me, then stepped back as if struck by an argument made in front of them. They tried to grab the mouse, and I slapped their hand away. For a breath they looked at me as if deciding whether I was an obstacle or an ally. Outside, I heard a distant siren and then nothing else. The intruder's shoulders sagged and they shoved the pointed object into a pocket. "You have until dawn," they said, and turned toward the door. They paused at the threshold and said, "Tell Victor he'll be next if he tries to lock me out." Then they left. And the lock clicked when their weight passed the frame as if the building decided to work in our favor for once. After they left, Sam posted that local patrols had taken a report downstairs and security would hold the lobby for an hour. Maya leaned back from her camera and put a hand over her mouth. Victor's shoulders on screen had tightened into an expression I have only seen when supply lines break or when investors threaten litigation. "Good work on containment." He said finally, "Alex, you made the right call to keep evidence intact. We need to assess leaks and identify the admin token." He did not sound relieved. He sounded already recalculating. I saved my draft without sending it and marked copies in a private folder that Sam could later analyze for digital forensics. I told Maya and Sam the truth. I had intentionally scrambled the delivery headers to create noise. Why would you risk that? Maya, because the intruder wanted a clean out. I said, if we show the move, Victor will shut things down and the intruder can claim victory. If we muddy the trail, we get time. The shift in me from reactive to manipulative felt heavy and concrete. I sat on the floor and watched the paper thread I had dropped. The crease where the staple had been now had smudged ink where my hand had brushed it. The team assembled a fragile plan. Sam would trace the admin token's origin and check the contractor's provisioning logs. Maya would comb the archive for files that had been touched. Victor would call counsel and decide when to tell clients. Each of their actions changed the direction of the problem. None of them offered the comfort of resolution. The tension settled into practical steps. We were moving from crisis to triage. At 4:27 a.m., the building's security lead sent a short message. No sign of the intruder on camera after the stairwell frame at 1:47 a.m. No prints except ours. Outstanding question about who printed the thread earlier in the evening. Victor opened a quiet line in the channel. Meet me in person at 9 a.m. He added, I need to review all access logs and the contractor's provisioning. Come to headquarters. His message was a summons, not a request. I felt the final shift of the night, from immediate danger to an inevitable confrontation. I closed the laptop, but I did not shut down the network. I wrapped the printed thread and put it in a kitchen drawer under a stack of unpaid bills. I left the draft email unsent so that Sam could pull it as evidence of an attempted diversion. I called Sam and told him to preserve every temporary file. I told Maya to get rest if she could and to keep her phone on. Victor Sin, person meeting was the last line of the chapter. A direct order that moved the problem out of my apartment and onto a table where decisions would be made in daylight. I sat at the window and watched the street below empty into pale gray. A delivery van passed and someone on a bicycle crossed the frame. The morning light did not explain what had happened. It only made tangible the things we would now handle in the open. The print logs, the contractor token, Victor's choices. I slid the drawer closed over the paper thread, and put my hand on the cool wood. When the clock hit 6, I powered the screen back to life, ready to answer the meeting that would determine whether the person who had stood in my living room had been acting alone or on someone else's instructions. That decision would shape how we protected clients, how Victor controlled the story, and whether any of us could trust the systems we had built. The phone buzzed with a short message from Victor. 9 Sharp, be prepared, signed V. I read it twice and then placed the phone face down. I left the draft visible on the screen, a calculated lie waiting to be weaponized if needed. I did not feel heroic. I felt responsible in a granular way, for the details, for the chain of evidence, for Maya's safety. I breathed, counted the small noises of the apartment, and waited. The night's intruder had left a printed thread on my floor and a new problem on our doorstep. There would be questions at 9 a.m., and some answers would require more than words. The drawer closed with the certainty of a hinge, and I walked to the table to make coffee before the meeting. The alert popped up before I could blink. User archive, Chen Maya account deactivated. I hit the notification and the company. Wide window opened, an unscheduled call with Victor speaking on mute, his face a hard rectangle against a midnight office. Explain. Victor, and his voice cut through my headphones like a blade. Suspicion settled into my ribs the way it had the night I first opened the archive email at 2:13 a.m. I felt that same tightness and the familiar need to prove something true. I stood from my desk and knocked my mug against the table by accident. Coffee sloshed onto the mouse pad. I cleaned it up with my shirt hem while Victor demanded a point-by-point account of the thread that named Maya. Simone Park from her appeared in a separate tile and folded her hands as if she could keep the room from tipping. The conflict was immediate. Someone had removed Maya from our systems and the company wanted a justification now. My jaw tightened. Suspicion pushed my hands to my keyboard and my mouth to answers. Alex, Victor, how did archive? Chen, Maya appear in active logs. His tone left no space for gentle answers. I could hear the team waiting through the speakers. Jordan Lice tile flashed in the corner. He looked pale and alert. I pressed my voice into the call. Victor. I opened it at 2:13 a.m. because the archive notification landed in my inbox, I said. My voice was steady. There was a photo and a PIF. I closed it. I didn't alter anything. Simone cut in. Alex, we need the file chain. Can you confirm ownership and headers? Her question was procedural, but the way she said it made me feel boxed in. The company was asking me to reconstruct a timeline I had only glimpsed. I dug my hands into my hair. The office was cold behind the webcam glow. I thought of the printed thread on my mat from the night before. Maya's name across a stack of pages, the ink crisp. That paper had been a touchstone when the door had been ajar. I remembered the feeling of pushing the key and the lock not clicking. That memory steered my hands now. I shared my screen. The meeting filled my room with tiled faces and clipped breath. Jordan and I ran through the message headers aloud. Jordan clicked and scrolled. Alex, the route shows an internal admin signature on the archive, he said. His voice sped up. It didn't originate from Maya's device. Doubt shifted in me to alarm. Internal admin signature. Victor's face sharpened. Show it. Now he removed his earpiece and pinched the bridge of his nose like someone trying to remove a headache. I moved the cursor. The header displayed the rewrote, the IP path, the admin token. The room hummed. Someone in the call coughed. Simone's expression tightened. If that's true, that's serious. If someone used an admin account to archive an employee, we have to trace who had access. She looked at Victor. And we will need to suspend access until we know more. A new emotion pulsed under the alarm, a stubborn protectiveness toward Maya. that protectiveness had nothing to do with the company and everything to do with the night I had found her apartment with a printed thread on the mat. I remembered the lamp on in her living room and the dark figure in the corner of the attached photo. That detail had lodged in me and shaped each step since. I said, "Don, to sweep her out. Don, to make her disappear while you figure this out." Victor's reply was a clipped, corporate justification. "We must preserve integrity." Jordan leaned into his webcam. "Alex, I can trace server logs if you authorize my access." He was young, hands moving quickly, eyes like a kid who'd been told to fix a broken bike. He kept talking as he typed. "There's a delayed message, by the way. A forwarded file came through to Alex around 3 a.m. with a timestamp that contradicts the archive claim." The room shifted. That contradiction gave me a new focus. Doubt moved toward action. After the call broke up, I stayed online. I opened the delayed message. It was from Maya. The subject line was a single forwarded file. The timestamp showed it sent before the archive entry Victor had presented. My mouth went dry. My fingers found the header trace and the forwarded attachment. I felt the change in direction, from guarding Maya to proving the record false. I called Jordan. "Can you run a header comparison?" I asked, "Compare the forwarded file to the archive headers on it." Jordan, "Send me what you have." He logged in and shared his terminal. His face lit by code lines. "Look here," he said, pointing at the screen. This wrote crosstalks with the admin account's token. But the forwarded file shows a different path and a device, it matching Maya's home network. Someone planted the archive. The admin's signature was applied after the forwarded file hit internal mail. Jordan's voice tightened into a sentence with teeth. Suspicion shifted into anger. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the printed email thread I had kept. I smoothed it with my palm. The paper's ink had a certain angle where a printer head had vibrated slightly. I had noticed it when I first picked it up. My attention to details had always been my job. The detail helped now. The forwarded file's print marks matched the pages on my mat. The physical evidence made the digital anomaly impossible to dismiss. A notification pinged. Simone was on my line. "Private, Alex, I need to ask you something off record," she said. "If Victor is implicated, we have to be careful. He controls everything. Do you want protection?" Her words were careful, as if she were handing me a live wire. I swallowed. "Simone, protect Maya's device records. Preserve the print. Don't let anyone alter those logs. And tell Jordan to export everything." I heard the quiet click of her notebook closing. "I'll take the call public if I have to." She hesitated, then said, "You could lose your role." That threat tightened my throat. Self-preservation flickered alongside loyalty. I thought of the team and of Maya's quiet insistence in earlier threads, the way she left short handwritten notes in packages for colleagues, the tilde she put at the end of friendly messages. Her humanity had been a small current under the company's transactional wave. I made a choice: protect Maya's records. Tell Victor I refuse to cooperate with Erasure until we verify ownership. By dawn the logs showed more than headers. Embedded metadata, access times that didn't line up, and then, in a nested frame inside the archived attachment, a live feed still that froze in my window. The frame showed a doorway I recognized, the same lamp, the same couch. Victor's shape, unmistakable in the hallway, shoulder-angled, coat hanging, walking into Maya's apartment earlier than he had claimed in the call. I felt the air in the room go thin and then very cold. The proof wasn't the implication any longer. It was a photograph taken from inside her living room. I shared screen capture into the company call and unmuted myself. "Victor, stop talking. Look at this frame." My voice shook. "This proves someone entered Maya's place at X02 this morning." I left the time numerical on screen and let it sit. The tiles went quiet. Victor's face lost some of its control. He blinked and said, "That could be fabricated." His hands pinched the bridge of his nose. Jordan clicked through the timeline and narrated aloud. This feed was embedded in the attachment before the admin signature was applied. The path shows the feed captured on a device with a MAC address registered to your security detail. "Victor." Victor's jaw tightened. "Show proof." "Jordan, show the MAC mapping." Jordan brought up the table here. "Security device Axtel 3. Last registered to the company concierge, the one Victor authorized last quarter. Simone's face rearranged. Victor, did you authorize a welfare check? Did you enter Maya's apartment? Her words moved from protocol into demand. The company room felt like a courtroom. Victor's reply came in short sentences. I made a welfare request. I sent someone to check on Chen. I would not enter without her permission. His voice was carefully temperate. I only wanted information. Mayer's name in my mouth tasted like a plea. I heard the memory of the door ajar again, how the lock had failed to click, how the printed thread had been laid on the mat. Those details had weight now. I pushed forward. Victor, the feed shows you inside the apartment at 1:47 a.m. That's not a welfare check from a concierge, that's in-person entry. Who authorized the footage? Victor flinched. For a second his face lost composure. Then he said, I will have the security team respond. This is a privacy matter. The room erupted into quick, clipped lines. Team members demanded immediate suspension of implicated accounts. Simone insisted on legal counsel. Jordan called out logging inconsistencies. I watched people choose sides in their tile faces. At least 3 colleagues said Maya's name aloud in ways that felt like support. At least 2 suggested we trust leadership until proven otherwise. The argument built into a rapid exchange. Simone, freeze archives now, I said. No one touches the evidence. Alex, you can order that, Simone replied. But you can file a formal preservation request. I'll initiate it, do it, I said, and Jordan, export every server packet. Hash it. Lock it. My orders sounded small and concrete, the only things I could use to hold truth against Arasha. Someone on the call asked, Maya, are you there? No one expected an answer. Then a new tile opened. A face appeared, nervous, eyes rimmed red. Maya. She had joined from a new address and kept her camera low. Her voice was thin. I want to come back to the office. Not yet. Her presence shifted the tone from abstract protocol to personal consequence. I could see the way she held the corner of a blanket and how her hands shook. I said, Maya, we found evidence you didn't create the archive. We want to let them erase you. She exhaled. Alex, the archive made me look like I staged something. I didn't. I woke up to the printed thread on my mat. I don't know who put it there. Her words were tight and direct. I felt like someone had tried to make me leave. Victor watched her without speaking. His jaw was a line. When he did speak, he said, I sent someone to check on you because you missed meetings. I asked for a welfare check. If protocol was breached, we will investigate. His voice had an evenness that didn't match the tension. I pushed. Victor, did you or someone on your team enter her apartment and create that archived file? The room waited for a direct answer. Victor's reply was 2 short sentences. No, I requested a check. I did not enter. Jordan interrupted with a new display. There are access logs for the concierge device that match Victor's security token. The token was issued under his authorization. The admin's signature on the archive was applied after the footage was captured. Someone used internal admin privileges to attach the live feed frame. Simone, we need an independent audit. I will escalate to legal and suggest an external forensic team. Her voice carried a legal cadence that steadied things. Victor's face closed. You will not weaponize this call to smear me, he said. He sounded small for the first time. His control had cracks. If you are accusing the CO, you are accusing the company. A short back and forth followed with 3 to 5 rapid lines exchanged between Victor, Simone, Jordan and me. Victor demanded restraint. Simone demanded preservation. Jordan demanded logs. I demanded the truth. The exchange was sharp and public. It served the chapter's momentum. Then something unexpected appeared. A second delayed message from Maya, private to me, with a single line in the body. Check the 3rd photo. It has a shadow that isn't mine, the image linked to the original archive photo I had seen in Chapter 1. I opened it and froze it beside the live feed frame. The 2 images aligned. The shadow in the archive photo matched a shoulder and profile visible in the live feed still. The evidence redrew motives in front of us. My suspicion hardened into a clear accusation. Someone within the company had used internal tools to stage a record that justified removing Maya. That someone had access to Victor's security tokens or had deliberate cause to implicate him. The shift moved from suspicion to focused investigation. My hand stopped shaking and began methodical work. Simone moved next. I am freezing Victus admin tokens pending the audit, she said. We will bring in external counsel and a forensic firm. No accounts will be wiped. No evidence will be moved. Victus' posture went rigid. He looked at me like someone trying to read a ledger. Alex, you used a company call to make public accusations. That could be insubordination. I made the evidence public because you tried to erase her. I said, you for explanations. Victor, now answer truthfully. Did you authorize footage from inside her apartment? He paused. Then he said, I authorized a welfare check, yes. I did not authorize any footage to be embedded in a company archive. If someone abused access, we will find them. The words were not a confession, but they carried a fracture. I could see colleagues recalibrating. Jordan sent a private message on the side. There are tokens issued last quarter to off-site security. They match a vendor who had a contract revised by Victus' office. The new detail widened the suspicion web. People on the call adjusted, their faces reflecting the widening ripple. We moved to immediate measures. Simone read out a list of steps. Preserve all logs, initiate independent audit, place Victus admin privileges on temporary hold, and contact outside counsel. The legal language felt heavy in my mouth, but it gave us concrete guardrails. Maya logged off after thanking us, fingers pressed to her mouth. I watched her tile collapse. The aftermath felt quieter. Leadership locked down accesses. Her compiled a statement that would go to legal. Jordan kept sending packet exports and file hashes. I stood at my window and looked out at the city as morning light picked at building edges. My hands trembled not from fear now, but from the sense that I'd put something real in motion. Simone called me privately. Alex, you did the right thing. You could have stayed silent. You didn't but understand this. The company will try to close ranks. Expect pressure. Be prepared. Her voice was even. There was a tiredness under it. I thought about the earlier chapters, the archive email at 2:13 a.m. The video ping that froze on my screen, the open door and printed thread on Mayus' mat. Each had been a breadcrumb. Now the breadcrumbs formed a trail to an organized effort to discredit or remove her. That understanding shifted the story's stakes from individual harm to institutional erasure, Jordan messaged. We re-uploading hashes to an external repo. Can T be altered? I typed back. Good. Keep the chain intact. At 9 a.m., an outside investigator called and asked for a recorded statement. I gave it, sticking to facts. Times images, printed paper on my mat, the admin signature, the live feed frame. I described how I had found the printed thread and how the archive email had landed in my inbox at 2:13 a.m. I described the door ajar and the lock that didn't click. I did not speculate. I stuck to physical actions and observed details. After the investigator hung up, a slower emotion arrived. Exhaustion folded into a steady resolve. That resolve came with a cost assessment. I could keep pushing and risk my job. I could back away and leave Maya to fight alone. Action felt like the only honest response. Simone emailed the team a notice of preservation and a request for patience. Victor published a brief company-wide statement acknowledging an investigation, but insisting on privacy and due process. The wording was careful. It read like corporate damage control. I thought of how his image had been crafted across years, clean statements, measured absence, an unyielding tone. That image had been his shield. The live feed had punctured it. Maya replied to my private message with a single, steady line. Thank you. Keep my file safe. The simple command shifted my focus back to people rather than systems. Before I closed my laptop, I walked to my front door. The printed thread on my mat was still there, folded at the corner where I depressed it flat. I folded it again and placed it into an envelope I labeled with a ballpoint in neat block letters, Preserve. Then I left the envelope propped against the inside of the door and walked outside. I locked the door behind me but left it unlocked on the latch so someone could open it without force if needed. The gesture felt practical and symbolic at once. A way to say I would not allow erasure. Simone called one last time in the morning. We're reinitiating the external audit formally, she said. Jordan will work with the forensics team. Expect subpoenas. Stay reachable. I will, I said, and Simone. Thank you, she paused. Alex, be careful. People will test your loyalty. I closed my laptop and left the key in the lock. The printed thread lay on the mat through the thin slant of morning sun. The chapter ended with action. My envelope on the mat, the external audit underway, and Maya logged in from a new address but choosing to stay away. The company's authority had been challenged, and the choice to protect evidence had become my immediate work. I walked to the corner and made a call to Jordan to confirm the last packet uploads. He answered on the second ring. They re in the repo, he said, unalterable. I breathed and told him, good. Keep watching the logs. Then I stepped into the morning, hands empty but not idle, and closed the door behind me with no slam.